Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner. Today is the third Giro d'Italia rest day. So what do we want to talk about in today's stage? You have to go into Del Toro and his amazing transformation he's had here at the Giro d'Italia. Now, if we go into last season and we start looking when Del Toro first came on the scene, we see him at Tour Down Under. He was riding spectacular there. He won a stage. But we also saw a Tour Down Under that he was missing a bunch of different holes throughout his arsenal of tricks, and important ones such as positioning in the peloton. More important ones too in terms of just being the strongest, best rider in the European peloton. Well, we come in here to the Giro d'Italia, and especially when we see yesterday's stage 15, along with stage 11, we back up there and see Carapaz at stage 11, and we know Del Toro, is riding on fantastic form. We've seen him go at stage 9, Strade Bianche, when he dropped everybody except for Wout van Aert. Wout wins the stage. Of course, the pink jersey goes over to Del Toro for UAE Team Emirates. So what we have seen the transformation-wise is, of course, his level has gone up. It could be he's a page 1 rider. Could be. We're not there yet, just yet. But if you look at the riding he's had, it's questionable whether or not if his ability has dropped him up onto first page. Now, he hasn't started winning yet. He hasn't won a stage here at the Giro d'Italia, so I'm not saying he's first page. I'm saying we have to look at it. In order to be first page, you really have to be dominant throughout the season and winning multiple races and being able to drop the best riders in the world, and Del Toro hasn't won a stage yet. But he has been incredibly dominant. He has changed his arsenal of tricks and fixed those and patched up those holes. He got better, as I just said, but he's gotten tactically better, and when it comes to his ability to place himself in the right position of the peloton, leaps and bounds better from last year. This year, if I take you into Trino Adriatico, where we're coming into the last corners and we start the final climbs at Trino Adriatico late in the stages, Del Toro was always in a decent position, especially when we compare it to last season, where the same races he was in bad positions and losing out all the time. This year, again, because of Trino Adriatico, and then we start looking at Milan-San Remo, where I said on Beyond the Coverage that I would bring Del Toro to Milan-San Remo, but I couldn't guarantee you that he can make it into the Cipressa, that last corner coming off the coast when you start to climb proper, if he can make it there. But I thought he had a 50-50 chance because those skills had already progressed from last season at Tour Down Under and Trino Adriatico into this season at Trino Adriatico. He didn't make that corner coming up this Cipressa, but I thought he could. Now we come into the Giro d'Italia, and he's fixed that. He's checked that arsenal off now, where he has the tactical skills to put himself at the front of the peloton at all crucial moments. That is a massive ability change in one rider's form. And with that ability change of starting the climb in the proper position at the front of the peloton, that of course has saved Del Toro's legs and brought his form up so that he's fresher when he starts the last climbs. And then of course, I believe his natural level of fitness has gone up another level, which has helped too. So those two tricks of starting at the front of the climb and being at the front of the peloton throughout the whole race, and then starting right when it's explosive at the bottom of the climb, because guys, trust me, there is nothing faster, no pace harder than when they first come into the climb and everyone's doing 650 watts, 700 watts, and they're blowing up the legs. And then you got to back off for a short recovery where you're still doing 400. Then you got to do more accelerations at 650. So if you're at the back of the peloton trying to make up time, like I'll show you here at the 25 Milan-San Remo, where he's at the back and had to come around the back and get himself back up to the front, it's just too much energy wasted. So now he's saving that energy, and I believe his level has gone up. Now, we don't know exactly how high it's gone up, but when you look at yesterday's stage 15 of the Giro, and you start seeing Simon Yates attacking, Derek G attacking him, Egan Bernal attacking him, Richard Carapaz throwing in vicious attacks after his teammate Cepeda done a fantastic job of blowing things up. Once we see Carapaz attack, Del Toro's covering all of them, and he's covering all of them while looking back. If I take you into the penultimate climb of stage 15, when we have 5 riders at the front, and you have 2 from Ineos or Insman, Egan Bernal there, then you have Derek G arriving at the same point in time when Del Toro's putting his vest on. And guys, there's times every rider can put their vest on when they're at their max. There's no doubt about it. It's a skill most riders have at this level of racing. But when you look at the way Del Toro's putting his vest on while Derek G's bridging the gap there, you can tell Del Toro looks something amazing on his fitness level, and it's gone up somehow here at the Giro d'Italia from what we've seen in the past. All right, so his level's gone up. His tactical abilities have gone up, and his strategies is looking really like that has gone up too. His tactical ability, has gone up. When we go back into Tadej Pogačar, and we started looking at the 21 Tour de France where UAE Team Emirates were sending attacks up the road all over the place in the first 9 stages of the Tour de France when they had the #1 ranked rider in the world, the next Eddie Merckx rider, who was almost Eddie Merckx at that point in time, but certainly is Eddie Merckx type rider now. But even in 2021, he was head and shoulders above everyone. And UAE Team Emirates were throwing attacks up the road, left, right, and center. Now you come here into the Giro, they're not doing that. They're staying more calm. They're staying around their leaders. Now, there's one thing I do want to discuss where UAE Team Emirates have not quite perfected their tactics. They've left a little bit of room on the cards on the table when we go into that stage 11 where Richard Carapaz won, and he soloed that stage. At that moment when Richard Carapaz was going, Del Toro could have just followed the Ecuadorian rider from EF Education, followed with him, worked with him, and most likely would have had a shot at winning the stage at the finish of stage 11 and gaining time on all of his rivals. So we go back now into stage 15 and we see where UAE Team Emirates controlled the peloton beautifully. Remember, 35 riders went up the road, 75, 80 kilometers into the race. It was blazing fast throughout the whole stage of 15. And then 35 riders are going up the road. But UAE Team Emirates, they didn't worry about it. They were calm. Del Toro was amazing. For a kid of 21 years of age, tactically to sit there and watch 35 riders go up the road and not panic at that moment is amazing. If I take you into Tour de France stages with Tadej Pogačar, I remember early in his reign there at the Tour de France when Wout van Aert, Mathieu van der Poel's going up the road, and they're throwing in 30 rider groups or 20 rider groups, and I was working for NBC at Peacock, and I walk into the station and everyone's losing it. I look around at all these so-called professionals at Peacock when we're talking Bob Roll and Christian Vande Velde, and they're all losing it. Christian Vande Velde was losing it on that stage about, oh my God, UAE Team Emirates are in trouble, they're in trouble, they're in trouble. I look over at the guys from Peacock and I go, no, they're not in trouble. There's nobody up there that's a threat on the general classification. Tadej Pogačar, UAE Team Emirates, has no reason to worry about a group going up the road that's this large in size of the break going up the road because there's nobody a threat up there. That's what Del Toro already experienced yesterday in stage 15 when 35 riders were going up the road, and we go and look at Tadej Pogačar with 25 riders, 30 riders going up the road with Wout van Aert in there, where they were panicking like crazy on that stage. I'll call it stage 9, but I'll fix it down below if I'm wrong. And we look at Tadej Pogačar where UAE Team Emirates were panicking, and then finally they realized after chasing full gas, almost blowing up their whole team, they realized that, oh, we don't have to chase this, and backed off. But yesterday, stage 15, 35 riders going up the road, Del Toro didn't panic at all. He only has with him Juan Ayuso, Igor Arrieta, who's up in that front group of 35, and so there's only Adam Yates, 3 riders back there, and then all of his super domestiques are behind chasing with Bahrain victorious. But Del Toro doesn't panic. What happens? The 2 groups come back together. He gets the whole team back together, minus Arrieta that's up in that front group at 35, sitting on that he can use later in the stage. So that was amazing transformation so far here at the Giro d'Italia. Tactically, he's been good. Positioning-wise, he's been amazing, and I believe his form's gotten better. But we don't know for sure exactly about his form. We do know he's playing with everyone here at the Giro d'Italia. There's no doubt about that. But we haven't seen him solo stages. First page rider solo races left, right, and center. Tadej Pogačar solo races. Jonas Vingegaard solo races. Primož Roglič has solo races, and it was just at Catalonia, his last race before Giro d'Italia, where Primož Roglič solo races. Remco Evenepoel solo races. Wout van Aert solos races and dominates and scares the whole peloton. When we look at Mathieu van der Poel, we all know Mathieu van der Poel solo races and wins all over because that's why he's what has been wearing the rainbow band jerseys in years past when we're talking about that fantastic Glasgow victory from Mathieu van der Poel. So first page rider solo races. So is Del Toro a first page rider? People have already been asking me in the comments that we need to start thinking about it. Well, I don't think we can give it to him yet, but could we see him solo on these next 3 mountain stages of the 3rd week of the Giro d'Italia in 2025? It wouldn't surprise me. It looks like he has that form, but we haven't seen it yet, so we got to wait and see exactly where Del Toro is. Now, I want to go back into stage 15 again. I want to go into 92 kilometers to go. I want to show you where Egan Bernal's attacking. First off, this is a knucklehead move. I love that some teams doing it. I just don't want it to be my team. Egan Bernal says because he's wearing the Colombian National Championships jersey that he's going to be aggressive throughout the Giro d'Italia because it's motivating him a ton. And in his own interview, he says he's got nothing to lose. But right now, Egan Bernal is sitting top 10 on the general classification. This is his first time where it looks like Egan Bernal, the Colombian rider, has some top form. And he said in his interview, it's the first time since his back hasn't been bothering him because he's had surgery on his back. So he's riding pain-free here. And he's recovered, of course, from that crash that he had in Colombia a few years back into the bus. So right now, Egan Bernal says he has nothing to lose. But Egan Bernal, you keep attacking like this, you do have something to lose because you'll drop out of the top 10 if you hang your neck out there too far. Yesterday's 2 climbs, especially the last one, was a bit softer, so you could follow wheels and the speed's a little bit bigger. Plus, we haven't had a ton of mountain stages. Once they start going back to back in this last week here of the Giro d'Italia, you might find your legs don't recover in between races. So although I like teams doing that, if I'm on another team, I don't want my team throwing in that tactic. But now we go back to that tactic and we start looking when they go over the top of the penultimate climb. There are 5 riders in the front group: Egan Bernal, Ari Ensman, Derek G, Richard Carapaz, who's looking fantastic here at the Giro d'Italia, and Derek G, who somehow has gotten better and better here at the Giro d'Italia, and yesterday stage 15 looked marvelous. But what I really want to talk about is UAE Team Emirates chasing behind. Well, we see UAE Team Emirates because they have Juan Ayuso there that's sitting 3rd on the general classification. Simon Yates is 2nd on the general classification too, and Primož Roglič is back there 5th on the general classification. Now, if I'm directing the team of UAE Team Emirates, do I have a problem with UAE riding the front back there while you have Del Toro sitting on that group of 5 with one teammate up the road, Arieta, in that original group that they still haven't caught yet of about 30 riders, give or take whatever it happens to be at this moment. It might only be 15 or 20. Either way, Arieta's up there, but there's some other teammates up there when we're talking about Frigo, who's going solo up the road, and Frigo is the teammate, of course, of Derek G, who's in that back group. Richard Carapaz could possibly have a teammate up there. I can't quite remember at this moment, but what I'm saying is that there's multiple riders in the front that could possibly come back and carry that group faster, while UAE Team Emirates is back there chasing. If I was a director sportif, and this is not a knucklehead move, but if I was a director sportif, I wouldn't have chased. I would have made Simon Yates and Primož Roglič and the other teams back there chase, because Primož Roglič would have had to put his team on the front. He still had Pellizzari with him and still had 2 riders in the front group because, of course, he had Danny Martinez and Aliote up there. Giovanni Aliote was up in that front group too, so he would have had to pull those guys back and start chasing. You could have possibly blown up the whole Bora Hansgrohe team, which means when you hit that last climb, Primož Roglič could have been isolated after chasing all the way up the climb. Okay, only 1 kilometer, but all the way down the descent, all the way through the valley, trying to catch the group in front. And if UAE Team Emirates are not back there chasing, instead of them catching at the bottom of the penultimate climb or descent, you want to call it, with about 65 kilometers to go when they're catching, if they don't catch there because UAE Team Emirates isn't chasing, well, then there's a 20-kilometer valley section that Bora Hansgrohe, if they're on the front, or Vis Melissa bike, that would have had to pull riders out of the front group too to come back and start chasing. You could have possibly blown up their whole team. But the reason why it's not a knucklehead move is because you have to remember at this point in time at the Giro d'Italia, when we're talking Del Toro, as much as I have just praised him, and I believe he could be a first-page rider, he's still 21 years of age, and we haven't seen him go into a 3-week race and hold form all the way through because he's 21 years of age. So I don't have a problem with UAE Team Emirates setting some tempo back there. Del Toro sitting on the front group, bringing it back together, because as long as you have all your teammates around you, you can always have guys feeding you, giving bottles. If you have a flat or mechanical, they can switch bikes immediately. And of course, if Ayuso sitting on that front group and Del Toro's back there chasing with teammates, they have better odds of getting on. So the safe strategy is, of course, to have UAE pull that group back. But of course, the strategy that could eliminate all of the GC guys on yesterday's stage 15 at the top of 90 kilometers to go, the penultimate KOM, if they don't chase there and Bora Hansgrohe do have to chase, you blow up their whole team. You go into that last climb where we saw Primož Roglič lose 1.5 minutes on yesterday's stage 15 with 2 teammates pulling in front of him. If he doesn't have his teammates, he's completely out of the general classification. But even now, at 3 minutes and 55 seconds thereabouts, behind 10th place on general classification. Primož Roglič is still out of the GC right now unless he can pull out a magnificent, marvelous, spectacular comeback story. But sitting 10th, having to pass 9 guys here at the Giro d'Italia, and one of them being Del Toro, another one being Carapaz that's on fine form, another one being Egan Bernal that looks pretty good, closer to Roglič in terms of time, so you could see that happening, but he's still got to do it. And then when you look at Juan Ayuso, who has to drop, Juan Ayuso did some suffering yesterday, stage 15, I believe, from the way he looked facial features-wise and where he was at in the group, not covering the attacks left and right. That could be from the crashes and the stitches in his knee, of course, but you got to understand that you got to drop Juan Ayuso, you got to drop Simon Yates, you got to drop Richard Carapaz, and Carapaz and Simon Yates are Grand Tour winners. Egan Bernal's a Grand Tour winner, so there's 3 Grand Tour winners that Primož Roglič has to drop in 3 mountain stages, and he still has to drop Del Toro, which I just got done explaining to you guys, has gone another level in all areas of his cycling ability here at the Giro d'Italia in 2025. Now, what does Primož Roglič have to do? Well, let's say Primož Roglič recovers and he comes back to the best form we've ever seen him have, or the best form he's ever had. Well, I don't know if that's enough because, as I just got done telling you, Del Toro could be first page rider now. We just don't know at this moment. But he's on the cusp of being a first page rider if he can start being super dominant here and continue it in the last week of the Giro d'Italia. I don't know the answer if he will be, but like and subscribe. Of course, the Butterfly Effect will see you for stage 16, the first real mountain stage here of the 25 Giro d'Italia. Can Del Toro hold it together? The kid looks fantastic, but remember, if we go back to Tadej Pogačar, 22 Tour de France, stage 11, 1 Coke, 1 Snickers, lost Tadej Pogačar of the Tour de France. The 21-year-old kid, Del Toro, needs to be careful. He has to be eating correctly, hydrating correctly. He has to keep his tactics on par where they have been so far. His UAE team members might at some point in time have to realize that Juan Ayuso is not their leader and Del Toro is the leader outright here for UAE team members, so we're going to have to see something better out of Ayuso soon. But if he can keep everything together, Del Toro that is, and keep all his skills as sharp as they have been, and don't forget to eat, Del Toro. Don't forget to eat and drink throughout these next mountain stages of the Giro, or that might cost you a victory here. And, of course, that'd be quite painful when we start looking at Tadej Pogačar. 1 Coke, 1 Snickers, cost him the 22 Tour de France. Here at the Giro d'Italia, stay hydrated, stay eating, and I'll call the tactics up here on the Butterfly Effect. So like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next stage of the Giro d'Italia 2025.